Warning, this podcast may change the way you think about business, entrepreneurship, and money forever. The Conquistador Podcast was created for dreamers, entrepreneurs, and leaders who want to conquer their future. To be an epic entrepreneur, you must adopt the right mental paradigms as well as master the art of selling, marketing, and finance. Now, it's time to welcome two serial entrepreneurs, leaders, husbands, and fathers who are passionate about sharing the strategies that are helping them excel in life and in business. Here are Mauricio Garcia and Hubert Humphrey.
I think one of the things that we are all trying to do is conquer. We're trying to conquer something. We're trying to conquer our future. We're trying to conquer our finances. We're trying to conquer the world of business. And so what could we learn from possibly the greatest conqueror of all time, considering proportions, size of the army, technology, weaponry at that time, and maybe what it was known as, territory, Alexander the Great. And so to talk about that, I have, as always, every day, my mentor, partner, my friend, Hubert Humphrey. How are you, sir?
I'm doing great. Good to be with you today, Mauricio, and all of our great budding modern-day Alexanders out there. We'd love to talk about that today.
Which I forgot, one of the most important things is to welcome everybody and thanking everybody for their time to allow us to share these gold nuggets with them. And so let's talk about that. The Alexander complex is a concept that you really talk a lot about, and you do that, I believe, because it holds the keys and secrets to what has been your success, 40 years of success. And so let's talk about that. Why do many of your concepts and your strategy gravitate around Alexander the Great, and probably more importantly, this thing you called the Alexander complex?
Well, it's a great subject for me. It's very personal for me, and I owe a lot of the success I have to the fact that I was able to wrap my mind around that whole thought, that whole idea. And but just understand the word conquer. You mentioned a while ago. The word conquer implies that you got to fight. It's going to be a struggle. Right. It's going to be a war. I remember a great book I read many years ago called Waging Business Warfare. So I'm glad I learned. If I'm gonna copy somebody, let's copy the biggest and the best, and we've got to be in the imitation copying business. And so why not copy Alexander the Great? He conquered the known world. He's the only guy that I know that I can study that conquered in his era the known world, and he did it in a unique way. And as I learned about this whole concept, I remember back many years ago, back in the mid 80s or whatever, I had gotten a draft of this book called The Alexander Complex by Michael Meyer. It said The Alexander Complex, and it just was an amazing title. Got my attention. I love history, and I'd already been studying about a lot of these different leaders and all, and what they were doing, and then he described what the Alexander Complex was. He said it was the Greeks had a word for it. It's called divine restlessness, mm-hmm. and it said that people who had the Alexander Complex wanted to conquer something and change it for some noble purpose. And he had identified several different leaders, 5 or 6 different leaders that were highlighted in this book, like Carl Icahn, Swanson, Ludwig, Perot, Ted Turner, different ones that wanted to conquer the world and change it for their noble purposes, whatever it was. Mm-hmm. Not so much for greed, but for noble purposes. And that was the way Alexander was. He was unlike his father. He wanted to conquer the world and make it Greek because he thought the Greek way was a better way. Mm-hmm. He went by conquering the hearts of men. His father was more about conquering lands. His father Philip could conquer, but he couldn't rule. Alexander could conquer and could rule because he led them by the hearts of men. And so I like that model. But then the thing that really, really changed my whole business career, my whole mindset. It gave me a bigger idea, a bigger paradigm than I'd ever dared dream before. And I was already dreaming much bigger than I'd ever dreamed as a little railroad conductor, making lots of money in a great business. And all of a sudden, a big new idea hits my mind, and I'm reading in this book. Got a lot of things out of it, but there was a page in there, and I'll just read it word for word, so you can get the same impact. Maybe the audience can get the same impact maybe that I got when I was I'm sitting on my plane, flying on my jet, got one of my business leaders over next to me, and I'm just reading this little draft of this book, and all of a sudden I said, "Whoa, man!" And it shocked them. They thought I was going to jump out of the plane. I was so excited, but this one little paragraph changed my life. It says, Alexander's feats defy the skeptics. You can better appreciate the sweep of the man by imagining him in business, arguably the last frontier in today's more circumscribed world. He said his sprawling, this was the sentence, his sprawling holding company, Alexander Inc., would span dozens of advancing technologies and industries, from supercomputers and technology to science to financial services, etc. And then anyway, it goes on and on. But I sit there and said, Alexander Inc., what an idea to go build something that's kind of the modern day Alexander idea. If Alexander were alive today, he would be running an Alexander Inc. would be bigger than Amazon's and Bezos and Musk and all these other great stars. He would dwarf them, because that's what Alexander the Great would be doing. And so that became the idea, and I started driving and built. That was the nickname of our team. Even as we were finishing with the A.O. Williams era, I literally put an ad in the USA Today, full page, full color. Spent a ton of money to advertising the birth of Alexander Inc. That's how much I thought of it. And then as I launched the beginning of our new companies, the second of our great companies that we built, I just was following that whole concept there. So Alexander Inc., the idea, is so invigorated me. It was a combination of the romance of the thought, the energy of it. It just made me think, man, why don't I go out there and in a modern day, in the insurance world, in the financial services world, in the marketing world, in the worlds that are opening up to me, why don't I go out there, get my sword in hand and get upon my horse and lead my people to go charging out there and conquer our future together? Mm-hmm. And so I've been taking that as the template and been looking to replicate that throughout myself and all of our leaders, to try to get them to become the modern day Alexanders. In fact, we even give out awards and big swords and shields. And
a lot of symbolism around that. Yeah.
You've got some of those, Mauricio. Mauricio, you've got the big helmets with the big plumes on it, things of that nature. That is because I want people thinking like that about conquering their future.
Well, let's look at the name of the podcast, the Conquistador Podcast.
That's
but
right.
is that the attitude? You know, waging business warfare. Alexander the Great, the greatest conqueror of all time. You know, when people probably think about how Alexander went conquering all this territory, obviously there were many battles. Obviously, a lot of debt, and it was just the attitude. And so what I'm trying to get to is if that is really the only way to win in business, is that level of aggressiveness, that killer instinct to go and dominate.
Well,
no mercy.
But Alexander, you're not describing Alexander. You're describing what most conquerors do, what his father kind of had, his attitude. But Alexander, his whole attitude was completely different. And not that there wasn't battles to be had. And
that's what I wanted to unearth. That's what I really want to unearth. What you're about to say. Sorry.
Alexander, he went out conquering the hearts of men. He would send his emissaries into a country to talk to their leaders and give them an option. Say, look, here's a better way. If we're here, we're going to come in here, and if you do the deal with us, we're going to promote you from here to the governor, to the king, whatever it is, and you'll share in the bounty of us as we're growing. You're kind of buying shares in Alexander Inc. as I'm conquering the world here, and you'll be safe and all this good stuff. So, and we're going to teach you a better way. And that's what he did all along the way. He took Greek civilization and established it in these places. And I'm not even going to get into whether it was right, wrong, whatever. I'm just saying he did it for more noble purposes. And in most cases, there were very, very limited battles were ever had to be because most people accepted that offer. He gave them a deal that they couldn't afford to refuse, And so that was what he did. Now you ask, is it now you in business and in life? You're either going to be the conqueror or the conqueree. Which one do you want to be? You're either going to be a player or you're going to be roadkill. Which one do you want to be in life? I want to be the conqueror.
Of course.
Because I had been conquered enough in my life. I wanted to be the conqueror, not to conquer people, but I wanted to conquer success. And the one thing I'll tell people that people say, well, Hubert, why are you making this, putting these tough guidelines on us? Why are you challenging us to do more? I said, look, I work for the same boss you work for. His name is Success. He's a mean son of a gun. He's tough. He's a tough taskmaster. And if I want to have what Success can offer, I've got to do what Success says. I can't take shortcuts. I can't be soft. I got to be aggressive. And so don't be mad at me because I work for the same guy you work for. It's called Success. And so you got to be a Success rewards people who are aggressive. It's like in that, I got a copy of a Top Gun pilot manual, a declassified Top Gun manual many years ago from a little guy named Zeke Zelensky, who had been in the Air Force and had some copies of some of this stuff about Top Guns. And I read this little manual. And so every page in it, it had the word aggressiveness, all throughout the whole book. And all along the way, it would stop and say, it would remind the person, the Top Gun person who was reading it, that without aggressiveness, all your other capabilities are useless. Everything you've been trained for, they're useless as a Top Gun pilot unless you're aggressive. In other words, if you can't make an aggressive vertical move, I don't mean a nice little, all right, tower, I'm going to make a nice little change in my altitude. That's not what, you got to make an aggressive vertical move in life. To get away from where you are in life to where you want to be, you've got to be aggressive. It's like look at all the thrust that a rocket ship has to have. It's just blasting off from Cape Kennedy down there. It's just all these twin engines are just blowing smoke and dust the ground shaking. It takes all of that tremendous energy to get that thing out. Why? It's got to break the gravitational pull of life. And in life and in business, in any phase of your life, to get better requires breaking a gravitational pull a little bit. And that takes aggression. It takes that. So your sword is not a sword to go chop anybody up. It's the sword of your system. It's the sword of your goals and your dreams that you got to go out there and charge.
And with that is that I wanted to get to the cost, like the mission, really, because I think most companies and entrepreneurs who are truly successful have one thing extremely clear, not just to them, but what they communicate out to the marketplace, which is what is really that crusade? What is that real mission that motivates? How did you go about finding, a good mission? Like, is it something you set out from the beginning, or you build a product first and then find the cost? Like, how did you come up with the mission of creating wealth for families, and how that really was the one mission there that millions and millions of people understood and stood behind it to create the greatest story in financial services ever written?
Well, it goes back in my mind, in my life, to the beginning. I had learned along the way as I was progressing from being an employee to a dreamer, and then a dreamer to trying to find some entrepreneurial thing that I could experiment with, and I found a few part-time I tried, and it was a great experience. And then eventually I found a vehicle that I could be in. And as I got into this vehicle called financial services, back at the very beginning with Art Williams, as he was just starting the A.O. Williams Company, he had a platform, he had a concept, a crusade, but he didn't have a recruiting and building delivery system. And I had learned one in my Amway days from a great engineer and great triple diamond guy that was one of the first big stars in Amway. He had developed a system, and it won't go through the whole story, but I had learned this system. So I brought this system in there, but I also knew that it had to be fueled by emotional stuff, and the emotional stuff had to be centered around some common mission that could unite us all. We're all independent, but we needed to be unitedly independent, which is a great concept in and of itself. You need to be unitedly independent. You need to be focused, and a mission statement is what does that. And when everybody is doing whatever role they've got to do in their business life, the whole team is all centered around one common mission. Boy, things happen, and it really got clear for me. I was working on the railroad, wanting to be somebody. A little part timer, he'd come by and saw me and couldn't explain anything. So out of frustration, when I realized he's making a little money, and he just started, and his father was a good friend of mine, and he hit my curiosity button, my greed button. So I went down and talked to some people, and I ended up signing up. And so I'm just into a little old deal. I don't know anything about it. I like what they're doing. It makes sense to me. The concept of buy term and invest the difference sounded right. And so I went in there and asked him. So I'd been in there. I'd been in business for about a week. Mm-hmm. And I hear that Art Williams, who was the lead, had just started the company about 2 months earlier, and was there. He was going to come down and speak to the 8 or 10 of us down there in Macon. So I got off the railroad, still had my railroad clothes and all on. I just go sneaking in the back of the room, and I'm sitting there, and in that room, he painted a picture. He had no idea what he was doing to me, or anybody. It was just the nature of art. He was just a forward-thinking coach that wanted to help you win the game. And he was saying, look, guys, listen, I got one mission here, guys. That's to help you guys make money. In fact, there's a bunch of you in here. I want you to make $100,000 a year with us. You got to understand, a little guy like me that had never made anything like that, nobody had ever told me I could make something like that. Nobody had ever showed me I could make something. It blew my mind. It was that was the biggest idea that I had ever thought or heard up until that time. That this guy said he was going to help people like me make $100,000.
And so was that a moment of realization, like an epiphany? Maybe you didn't know right at that time what it was causing on you, but then if it created that big of an impact on you, then you basically use that now as a mission statement, as a goal.
That's right. Yeah. That was it. That was the.
Everybody wants to improve their life. Everybody wants to make more money.
Yeah, and he did all that. And I said, man. It was almost like he had me at hello. It was almost like, Art, if it's robbing banks, just give me a mask and gun and point to the bank. I'm in, man.
Yeah, he wasn't talking about himself. He was talking about, I'm going to help you make money. Yeah, I'm going to help you make $100,000 a year.
Now I didn't know it at the time, but he had just made $100,000 the previous year at Waddell & Reed for the first time in his life. So in a sense, he had just learned how to make $100,000.
Well,
he didn't tell us
at least he had the moral authority, right?
Yeah. But he told me that's what he wanted to do. So I was in. I didn't even know what exactly we were doing. Totally, I didn't have understanding. I'd never seen this guy before, but it was love at first sight. Because he ignites something in me that becomes like an epiphany. It becomes a full blown epiphany because then as he kept talking, the B part of this thing occurs. He said, look, we're going to build something great. We're going to be a part of something great. We're going to build a great team. We're going to build all over the country. We're going to get out there. We're going to beat Prudential and all these other companies who are not giving the whole story to the American people. And we're going to go out there and replace that with this concept. We're going. He just talking. He said, man, we're going to have 300,000 people. He's just throwing a number out there. He has no idea. So I'm sitting there. and the little guy sitting next to me. There's only 10 of us in the room. So I bumped him. I said, how many people in the company now? He said, about 30. I said, what? He's going to have 300,000 people, and there's only 30. Man. Wow. That was an epiphany.
Yeah, and this was this declarations. Obviously, like you said, just little company, just a few people there, because people should know that those things actually happened and it was surpassed. Not only did you beat Prudential, but the next 3 or 4 largest insurers in the country. And second thing, at one time, I believe you had over 250,000 licensed agents. That was more than the rest of the industry combined.
Almost. I mean, we were in that range. But the point you're talking about is a good point here. That from that little seed, which Apple started in the garage of Steve Jobs and Wozniak.
Yeah.
Everything starts small. Great things come from seeds. Great oak trees come from little small acorns. Forests come from little oak trees that spread. So all that's how it is. Nobody starts out with this grandiose up at the top. That's not how success works. It works by starting small. But the thing that little seed did is that it stimulated me. Now, the one thing that I quickly found out is that they had a great crusade, and Art had this great vision of what he wanted to do for us, a mission statement, a vision of what he wanted to become, but he didn't have a delivery system to get there. He had the message, but he didn't have a team to build messengers. One of the things I learned a long time ago, a great message must have a great messenger, or it must have a great messenger building system. And that's what I brought into it, it was missing a system. And so I saw that vacuum, and I said, man, I've learned this system over here in Amway and from this guy, and man, I've worked it for the last 2 or 3 years. I know it'll work. It brought that system in there, and we were able to go out there. And so I added 2 things.
Divine accident. It was like a divine accident.
It was a glorious accident.
And glorious accident, yeah.
In fact, there's a book called Glorious Accidents, which is a great book about these types of things. But what I did is we settled in on our mission statement in that company, and I was able to take it to the second company and the third company now, and it was have a passion for our mission, not just a mission statement, but I want our people to have a passion for that mission. If you want to take the definition of selling the dream, it's having a passion for our mission, which is to create wealth for families. In fact, we wanted to become the company or the companies collectively on this long odyssey that produced the most financially independent people of any business in history, and a marketing business in history. And I believe we've done that now over the last 35, 40 years. And the second thing, we had passion for our mission. We had a submission to our system. That was the dual missions and strategies that we had to launch our businesses. Passion for our mission, submission to our system. And that's why this Alexander Inc. concept, a few years later, just electrified me, and it was another epiphany, and it took me and supercharged us on into much bigger than we ever were.
But I want to know, like, when did you? Because if you were attracted to that concept, was because you saw a lot of similarities, maybe into what you were feeling. Maybe you didn't know it at the beginning, but the Alexander complex. You always talk about, hey, listen, those driven, determined dreamers out there, the successful entrepreneurs, are probably suffering from what you call the Alexander complex. Who would, if somebody is going to be diagnosed with the Alexander complex, if any entrepreneurs were to be diagnosed with that, I would say good disease, what are the symptoms of suffering from the Alexander complex?
Well, in fact, when I read that book and read that day and on the plane, and I saw that little paragraph about Alexander Inc., later I talked to my wife Norma that night on the phone. I said, Norma, I found out what's wrong with me, honey. She said, well, what in the world is it? Because she wanted to know, because I've been driving everybody crazy, go.
Yeah.
And she said, I've got the Alexander complex. She said, what is that? And but I told her I now have diagnosed my condition. I want to be somebody big. I want to go out and conquer my future and all this kind of stuff. So, but who's got it? It's the people that have their desire level. Their desire level has gone from they kind of would like to be successful. It'd be nice to be successful. I hope I can be successful. I pray I can be successful. I'm gonna try to be successful. I would really like to be successful. I want it kind of bad. I'm real hungry. When that temperature gets past 212 degrees, and that it becomes a burning desire, it becomes an obsession. Now we're in the Alexander complex territory. They said that you live in the grip of a vision, and you can no more let go of that vision than you could stop breathing air. Just think about that. You know, when you want air, that's the Alexander complex. That's what it is. Let me just read you something here that rather than me just telling you parts of it, I like for them to just hear this, these 3 or 4 sentences here, because this right here really, let's see if I can look at this thing in a better way. Nope. Well, there we go. This describes what went on with Alexander. It said this is sort of the secrets of what drove him. It says that after 4 years with an army, that's just in 4 years now, this guy starting out as 18 years old guy made himself master of a power whose extent and speed of acquisition stand unequaled before a sense. In other words, so I like that. He made him a master of a power whose extent and speed of acquisition. So he was doing it big and fast. All right. And then he says in 330 BC, which was obviously, that was a little bit before cell phones and technology and social media. All right. So he had only to follow up on his third crushing victory. I like crushing victories. To be acknowledged the ruler of lands that covered 1 million square miles. So you understand there were no automobiles, nothing. This was all horse and chariot and things like that. He in 4 years he's got 1 million square miles of territory that he's the ruler of, and he had to do very little fighting to get it. It was mostly persuasion, right. and offering. He was selling dreams to people all along the way who bought into it, and anyway, it says he had become many thousand times richer than anyone else in the world. Now that's a pretty good deal, to be many thousands of times richer than anybody else in the world. He was like
1,000 times, yeah.
It says he became many thousand times richer. So he was like the Bezos and the Elon and Musk and all those guys of that era, much on steroids. Says now, if you want an advancement in life, if you want a raise, get in the right kind of business and give yourself a raise. If you want a promotion, don't sit there and say, I hope the boss gives me a raise. Promote thyself. You want to be wait, but let me finish this now.
Yeah.
I got to finish it. It won't be. I know you want to jump in there, but hold on here. Just it says this is what he did. He began as the king of the Macedonians, and confirmed himself as master of all the Greeks as he went and united all the Greek city-states. He's now the master of the Greeks. Then he becomes Pharaoh of Egypt, and by conquest the king of all Asia. But he had, and I like this other part. He had no intention of stopping. And then it goes on and says that he's not going to stop until the world runs out. Now that's part of the Alexander complex. You have no intention of stopping. You don't begin with some end in mind or some end. You begin with a goal in mind, but not an ending in mind. And like people say, why are you still in the business? Because I got the Alexander complex. I'm in the grip of a vision. There's more worlds to conquer, and we're going, and I'm going to do it. I love it. But then it says you're going to do it till the world runs out. Well, guys, we are just beginning. And in this era of social media and technology, we can conquer the whole business world across the world. So that's what. That's the kind of stuff that got inside of me. Maybe it'll affect somebody out there today. We may be creating a new pandemic out there right now.
Well, I'm sure there are millions of dreamers out there that have the Alexander complex that will do great things. Hopefully, we'll get to meet many of them and do some things together. That's for sure. And what I was trying to say earlier is just that if you truly had a scale to measure like wealth, how now you talk about Dale Carnegie and J.P. Morgan and all these billionaires, richest people in history from the past. If you put them on a scale compared to Alexander the Great, I don't know. I just don't see Alexander being referred as to the richest ever like Rockefeller. But but he was probably much richer than that, considering proportions and everything. But anyways, I guess aside from all that, the biggest message of today is that, if you have the Alexander complex, you're probably going to be successful. And if you don't have the Alexander complex, is there a way to get infected with that? Is there a way to get that virus in there, to have the Alexander complex in you?
Well, it's like any virus, get around somebody that's got it, and you can get infected.
There you go.
A virus, you don't just start a virus. Yeah. You don't just start a virus in your own body. You have to go and be around something, exposed to somebody that's already got it, and it's passing it on to you. And that's the best way to get it. And you do that sometimes by reading books and studying and listening to podcasts and tapes and things. And people can reach you, and it can get into your heart and mind. And most everybody out there's got some little desire about wanting more out of life, and they got enough frustration. And it can start as a little seed, and it can grow. It doesn't just happen all at one time, but it can build. Your whole desire level can be built on a bigger basis. And the Alexander complex is something. It's measured in sort of degrees of your life as you go forward. Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a common denominator that is said over and over and over again, and hopefully, if anybody's listening to this podcast right now who hasn't really taken it that serious, which is finding that mentor, reading those books, align with people that are. That have done much bigger things than you, align with them, because that's what's going to get your vision stretched, and that's what could maybe get you infected with the Alexander complex. And once you are, there is you have no other probably outcome than success, because you just will not rest until you achieve that. You go through everything. And so let's tell people, Hubert, about the event that is coming up on March 26 and 27 as we wrap up this podcast today. Because, these principles that we talked about today are going to be the things that we're going to talk in this Conquer event that is coming on 26 and 27. You got anything that you want to add to this event coming up?
Well, I know if I was a budding entrepreneur or business person, no matter where I was at, I would want to come and listen to somebody or some group of people that are going to describe how I can go out and become a modern day Alexander, how I can conquer a business part of my future. I can go out and do it, and I can take these principles of conquest and success and go out and make it happen out there. I would want to learn those secrets. People are always searching for the secrets that unlocking the code, unlocking the secrets of success. That's what we're going to be talking about out there right now. Not just about Alexander, but just things that can unlock different things in your life and in your heart and your mind, and how you can transfer those to people. Biggest thing we can teach you, the biggest thing I think you'll learn out of the Conquer event is Alexander had a conquer the world format system. That's the only way he was able to do it. He couldn't randomly run out there and do it. He had to master logistics, supplies, everything. You've got to understand, he's taken an army of 50,000 men across the known world, and he had to be able to supply them. So you have to. We're going to teach you about systems, and we're going to teach you about things that can help make your future more attainable.
And I'll tell you what, not because we're putting the event together, but I tell you, I've been to a lot of events. Many years back, I learned that I needed to associate myself with successful people, and I attended a lot of events. And there was a lot of the events that I attended that were very motivational in nature. Let's get hyped up. Let's rah. We go back home. But in most of these cases, didn't have real strategy. It was just motivational, a lot of good concept. And I'm sure there's a lot of good things I learned along the way. But nothing has impacted my life more than truly understanding these paradigms, these systems, the psychology of how to be an entrepreneur. And those breakthroughs, those plateau breakers, if I can call them that way, has happened in events like we're going to see at the Conquer event. So if you want to be there, go to conquerevent.com, purchase your ticket. This is going to be a virtual event, and it's going to be like nothing you've ever experienced in the past when it comes to the content and the quality of the speakers that we'll bring into you in this 2-day event, March 26 and 27. So go to conquerevent.com. And also, if you are looking for the best opportunity in the planet today, if you are looking for a vehicle that will enable you to take advantage of the biggest benefit this country has to offer, which is the free enterprise, if you want to be in the largest industry in the world, as a matter of fact, don't take it from me, take it from the World Wealth Report. And there's a lot of different publications out there that can tell you that the largest industry in the world is the financial industry, and that the industry where you have the highest probability of even becoming a millionaire, making 7, 8, 9-figure incomes would be in the financial industry. So check out what Hegemon Group International has to offer as a vehicle for you to really leverage that by going to hgiopportunity.com. That is hgiopportunity.com. And with that being said, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for listening to the podcast. I hope you found the value in it. Hubert, we'll see you tomorrow.
Hey, we'll see you. Take care.
Bye-bye now.
Warning, this podcast may change the way you think about business, entrepreneurship, and money forever. The Conquistador Podcast was created for dreamers, entrepreneurs, and leaders who want to conquer their future. To be an epic entrepreneur, you must adopt the right mental paradigms as well as master the art of selling, marketing, and finance.